Hello, everyone, and welcome. Today, we're going to dive into something really beautiful. A question I think we've all wondered about at some point. Why do we all connect with our faith in such deeply personal and sometimes completely different ways? Let's get right into it. I mean, have you ever really noticed that? For you, maybe the most profound spiritual moments happen in the quiet of prayer. But then your best friend, they feel it most when they're out there actively helping people. Or another person gets completely lost in the words of the Qur'an. It's a really fascinating part of the human experience, isn't it? And this, of course, usually leads to that little voice in our heads, right? We start wondering, am I doing it right? Should I be more like that person? We can't help but compare. And we start thinking that one way must be better than the others. But what if that's the wrong question to begin with? What if there is no single best way? What if our spiritual paths are meant to be as unique as we are? Well, there is some good news. The key to understanding all of this can actually be found in a piece of ancient spiritual wisdom. It's an idea that completely reframes this whole conversation, and it turns that feeling of comparison into a tool for self-understanding. Here it is. This beautiful Arabic phrase really holds the secret. Just listen to the sound of it. تنوعت أجناس الأعمال لتنوع واردات الأحوال. So, what does that actually mean? It translates to this. The diversity of deeds is due to the diversity of spiritual states that come to the heart. Now, this is the central idea we're going to unpack together. And trust me, it's a real game changer. So, to put it simply, the different ways we choose to worship aren't just random choices. They're actually the outward expression of something unique that's happening inside of us. Our actions are basically a mirror reflecting our heart's current spiritual state. Okay, to really truly get this, we have to understand a key term from this tradition, and that word is Wārid. This single concept pretty much unlocks the whole thing. So a Wārid is defined as something that comes to the heart. It's not something you create. It's described as a praiseworthy whisper that just arrives, without you forcing it or even planning for it. You can almost think of it like an uninvited but very welcome spiritual guest who shows up at your door. In more modern terms, a fantastic way to think about a Wārid is as a kind of divine download. You know, it's that sudden, clear inspiration that just lands in your heart and nudges you toward a specific good act. It's that internal push that says, hey, now is the time for this. And that is why our spiritual focus can shift so much. One day, the Wārid you receive might fill you with this overwhelming desire to perform prayer. But the next day, that inspiration might be to fast. Or maybe it's a pull to share some knowledge you've learned, or simply to sit quietly and connect with the Qur'an. It's all about what your heart is being called to do in that specific moment. So this is all fascinating, but how does it work in practice? How does a spiritual seeker, or a Murīd in this tradition, actually navigate these divine downloads? Well, it turns out there are two main paths you can be on. And which path you're on depends on one really simple thing: whether or not you're under the direct guidance of a spiritual teacher. See, if you have a teacher, their instructions are your guide. But if you don't, then your Wārid, that inner inspiration, becomes your guide. Okay, so on that first path, the student, the Murīd, puts their trust completely in the teacher's wisdom. So even if their own heart is whispering for them to do one thing, they follow their teacher's instructions instead. Why? Because they're on a structured path, and the guide simply has a clearer, wider view of the road ahead. But for a seeker who's walking their path without a formal guide, the whole dynamic is different. In that case, the Wārid, that praiseworthy whisper that comes to the heart, becomes the primary compass. It's the signpost that's telling you exactly where to turn your spiritual energy. So what does all of this mean for you and me right here, right now? Well, it means we can finally stop comparing ourselves to others and start truly embracing our own unique spiritual journey. This just changes the whole conversation, doesn't it? It's no longer about some kind of hierarchy of good, better, best when it comes to acts of worship. No. Instead, it's about what is most authentic and most alive for your heart in this moment. And that brings us to this incredibly profound piece of wisdom. The quality of your connection matters so much more than the quantity of your actions. An act that flows from a genuine Wārid, from a true state of the heart, is way more precious than 1,000 acts you do just mechanically, going through the motions. It's about sincerity over sheer volume.
At the end of the day, the way you feel inspired to connect with the divine is uniquely yours. It's not random at all. It's a direct reflection of your inner state. These inclinations are like your spiritual fingerprint, a one-of-a-kind marker of your personal relationship with God.
So I'll leave you with this thought. Instead of looking outward and comparing, what if we just took a moment to look inward and listen? What's that divine download, that spiritual nudge that your heart is receiving right now? And the real question is, how will you answer its call?